Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jaya Mudirayet Nasta Prayeshva Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtiki Shanvatam Shakata Krishna Punya Shravana Kirtana Vidyantasto Jabhadrani Vidunoti Suritsatam. Srimad Bhagavatam, continuing our readings. And today we're reading from Canto 5, Chapter 18, verse number 4. And the title of this chapter is The Residents of Jambudvip Offer Prayers. Text 4. Vadanti Vishvam Kavayaha Sma Nashvaram Pashyanti Chadyat Mavidho Vipaschita Tatapi Bhuyanti Tavaja Mayaya Suvishmitam Krityam Ajam Nato Asmi Tam Vadanti Vishvam Kavayashmanashvaram Vadanti Vishvam Kavayashmanashvaram Pasyanti Chadyatma Vido Vipaschitaha Pasyanti Chadyatma Vido Vipaschitaha Tatapi Muyanti Tadava Mayaya Tatapi Muyanti Tavaja Mayaya Suvishmitam Krityam Ajam Natosmitam Suvishmitam Krityam Ajam Natosmitam Vadanti Vishvam Kavayashmanashvaram Pasyanti Chadyatma Vido Vipaschita Tatapi Muyanti Tavaja Mayaya Suvishmitam Krityam Ajam Natosmitam Vadanti Vishvam Kavayashmanashvaram Pasyanti Chadyatma Vido Vipaschita Tatapi Muyanti Tavaja Mayaya Suvishmitam Krityam Ajam Natosmitam Vadanti Vishvam Kavayasmanashvaram Pasyanti Chadyatma Vido Vipaschita Tatapi Muyanti Tavaja Mayaya Surishmitam Krityam Ajam Natosmitam Varanti Vishvam Kavayasmanashvaram Pasyanti Chadyatma Vido Vipastita Tatapi Muyanti Tavajamaya Suvishmitam Krityam Vajamnatosmitam Varanti Vishvam Kavayasmanashvaram Pasyanti Chadyatma Vido Vipastita Tatapi Muyanti Tavajamaya Suvishmitam Krityam Vajamnatosmitam. Anyone else? Varanti Vishvam Kavayasmanashvaram Pasyanti Chadyatma Vido Vipastita Tatapi Muyanti Tavajamaya Suvishmitam Krityam Vajamnatosmitam. Madhajis? Varanti Vishvam Kavayasmanashvaram Pasyanti Chadyatma Vido Vipastita Tatapi Muyanti Tavajamaya Suvishmitam Krityam Vajamnatosmitam. Vadanti, they say authoritatively. Vishvam, the entire material creation. Kavayaha, great learned sages. Sma, certainly. Nashvaram, perishable. Pasyanti, they see in trance. Cha, also. Adhyatma vidha, who have realized spiritual knowledge. Vipaschitaha, very learned scholars. Tatapi, still. Muyanti, become illusion. Tava, your. Aja, O unborn one. Mayaya, by the illusory energy. Suvishmitam, most wonderful. Krityam, activity. Ajam, unto the supreme unborn one. Nata asmi, I offer my obeisances. Tam, unto him. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. O unborn one, learned Vedic scholars who are advanced in spiritual knowledge certainly know that this material world is perishable, as do other logicians and philosophers. In trance, they realize the factual position of this world, and they preach the truth as well. Yet even they are sometimes bewildered by your illusory energy. This is your own wonderful pastime. Therefore, I can understand that your illusory energy is very wonderful, and I offer my respectful obeisances unto you. Everybody repeat, please. O unborn one, learned Vedic scholars who are advanced in spiritual knowledge certainly know that this material world is perishable, as do other logicians and philosophers. In trance they realize the factual position of this world. And they preach the truth as well. Yet even they are sometimes bewildered by your illusory energy. This is your own wonderful pastime. Therefore, I can understand that your illusory energy is very wonderful. And I offer my respectful obeisances unto you. Srila Prabhupada's purport. Not only does the illusory energy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead act on the conditioned soul within this material world, but sometimes it also acts on the most advanced learned scholars who factually know the constitutional position of this material world through realization. As soon as someone thinks, I am this material body, aham mameti, and everything in relationship with this material body is mine, he is an illusion, moha. This illusion, caused by the material energy, acts especially on the conditioned souls, but it sometimes also acts on liberated souls as well. A liberated soul is a person who has sufficient knowledge of this material world and is therefore unattached to the bodily conception of life. But because of association with the modes of material nature for a very long time, even liberated souls sometimes become captivated by the illusory energy due to inattentiveness in the transcendental position. I'll read that sentence again. But because of association with the modes of material nature for a very long time, even liberated souls sometimes become captivated by the illusory energy due to inattentiveness in the transcendental position. Therefore, Lord Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, Chapter 7, verse 14, Mameviye prapadyante mayam etam tarantite. Only those who surrender unto me can overcome the influence of the material energy. Therefore, no one should think of himself as a liberated person immune to the influence of Maya. Therefore, no one should think of himself as a liberated person immune to the influence of Maya. Everyone should very cautiously execute devotional service by rigidly following regulative principles. Thus you will remain fixed at the lotus feet of the Lord. Otherwise, a little inattention will create havoc. We have already seen an example of this in the case of Maharaj Bharat. Maharaj Bharat was undoubtedly a great devotee, but because he turned his attention slightly toward a small deer, he had to suffer 2 more births. One as a deer and another as the Brahmin, Jad Bharat. Afterward he was liberated and went back home, back to Godhead. The Lord is always prepared to excuse his devotee. But if a devotee takes advantage of the Lord's leniency and purposefully commits mistakes again and again, the Lord will certainly punish him by letting him fall down into the clutches of the illusory energy. In other words, theoretical knowledge acquired by studying the Vedas is insufficient to protect one from the clutches of Maya. One must strongly adhere to the lotus feet of the Lord in devotional service. Then one's position is secure. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Vadanti Vishwam Kavayashmanashvaram Pasyanti Chadyatma Vido Vipaschita Tatapi Muyanti Tavajamayaya Suvishmitam Krityam Ajam Natoshmitam. O unborn one, learned Vedic scholars who are advanced in spiritual knowledge certainly know that this material world is perishable, as do other logicians and philosophers. In trance they realize the factual position of this world, and they preach the truth as well. Yet even they are sometimes bewildered by your illusory energy. This is your own wonderful pastime. Therefore, I can understand that your illusory energy is very wonderful, and I offer my respectful obeisances unto you. Om Ajnana Timanandasya Yananjana Salakaya Chakshurum Militam Jena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Shtabitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Gadamayam Tadasti Swapadandikam. I was born in the darkest of ignorance, but my spiritual master, by his causeless mercy, has forced my eyes open with the torchlight of knowledge. Therefore, I offer my most respectful obeisances under his lotus feet. How could I ever forget his mercy upon me? So we're continuing here with the wonderful prayers of the son of Yamaraj, Bhadrasrava, who is living in Bhadrasva Varsha. And it's stated in previous verses, he is chanting these prayers of glorification to the Supreme Lord. I believe in his form, expansion of Vasudeva, known as Haya Shirsha. We heard previously the prayers of Lord Shiva, who's residing in Ilavrita Varsha, and his prayers to Sankarshan. I just wanted to mention that it was mentioned, I think in the first verse. Yeah, in the first verse, just a few verses ago in this chapter, how Bhadrasrava and his associates offer their respectful obeisances to the Lord and chant the following prayers with careful pronunciation. These Sanskrit verses are so nice, and they're so melodious, and they're of course so incredibly powerful. These are sound vibrations that are uttered by the Supreme Lord himself or his intimate devotees, and they have the potency to completely liberate one from material entanglement. It's recommended that one can chant, can memorize certain prayers of great devotees. And it's so much encouraged that many times at the end of these prayers of these devotees, some benediction is there. Jai Shishi Gauri Thai ki jai, Shishi Krishna Balaram ki jai, Shishi Radha Syama Sundar Lalita Vishaka ki jai. There is some benediction at the end of the prayers that one who recites these prayers will get liberation from the material clutches, or so many blessings are there. And the prayers by Lord Shiva also, at the end of the previous chapter, there's only a few. But in the fourth canto, when Lord Shiva is instructing the Prachetas, there's wonderful, many wonderful, amazing prayers that one can recite, and it's encouraged that one remember, by constantly reciting, one will remember these prayers, and gradually we can absorb the mood of these great devotees. This is quite an interesting verse today, talking about how even learned great Vedic scholars who are advanced in spiritual knowledge are also prone to being covered by Krishna's material energy. And Srila Prabhupada quoted the verse in Bhagavad Gita, Daivikesh Gunamayi, Mama Maya Dhraya Mameve Prapadyante Mayametam Tarantite. That Maya is Dharaya. It is very difficult to overcome. Actually, it's impossible to overcome because it's the energy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. It doesn't matter if the living beings, such as ourselves, are essentially one in quality with the Lord. Because the material energy is emanating directly from Krishna, who is executing Krishna's will to cover those living entities who are envious of the Lord. Therefore, it executes its duty very powerfully and very purposefully, and no one can overcome it, even to the extent of those persons situated in Brahman realization who have attained that position of realizing their qualitative oneness with Krishna after possibly thousands and thousands of years of extreme austerities. Therefore, Srila Prabhupada says that no one should think of himself as a liberated person, immune to the influence of Maya. The coverings of the conditioned soul are many. And in this process of devotional service, which Lord Chaitanya has made so incredibly easy in one sense, on the other hand, can be incredibly difficult. At least it is for someone like myself, who, first of all, has no qualification other than simply the causeless mercy of my spiritual master, who's picked me up from such a low standard of life. Srila Prabhupada has recommended that we always remember where we came from. I've just been in Vrindavan a very short time now, and been experiencing such a high degree of mercy of the Lord that it's really incomprehensible to my material mind and senses to really fathom. And at the same time, when I'm experiencing so much causeless mercy from Radharani and her Dham, I'm much more acutely aware of the difficulties, my own personal difficulties, and my inability to actually surrender to the Lord and be completely honest about exposing my numerous faults. I feel that all the activities I'm performing in Vrindavan, the pleasure I'm getting from them is a lot more. Therefore, I'm also realizing that, as this verse is so instructive, that I need to be extremely attentive in my execution of Krishna consciousness, because it's even so much more easy to take that enjoying spirit and start trying to enjoy separate from Krishna. And so I'm asking all the wonderful Vaishnavas, residents of Vrindavan, please give me your mercy so I can be allowed to stay here and make rapid spiritual advancement. Srila Prabhupada, of course, wanted all his disciples to come to Vrindavan and Mayapur. And there's one time when, I think I mentioned this one time, I think the first time I gave class, but it's really nice and instructive, so I thought I'd mention it again, that when the Sankirtan book distributors from Radha Damodar were visiting Srila Prabhupada in Mayapur, when they were leaving, one devotee, Pragosh, turned to Prabhupada and said, Srila Prabhupada, thank you very much. And Srila Prabhupada said, no. Prabhupada said, thank you very much for allowing us to come to Mayapur. And Srila Prabhupada said, no. He said, this Mayapur is your home. He said, in the West, that's for preaching and sense gratification. He said, but Mayapur is your home. So in the same way, Vrindavan is our home. And it's inconceivable mercy to be able to come here and to be able to execute or attempt to execute devotional service. So we should all constantly count our blessings. I thought I would take a little time here to take the thread that's mentioned in this verse, that of inattention, inattentiveness, because it's such a important aspect of our process of performing devotional service. And if we can master, or if we can remember to constantly stay attentive, then it will really help us to make rapid spiritual advancement and to keep us on that razor's edge of Krishna consciousness. This is from a purport by Srila Prabhupada in the 4th canto. He says, without perfect knowledge, one cannot act perfectly. The real source of knowledge is the vacha, or sound vibration, given by Vedic instructions. Here the word vacha, or vibration, means the Vedic vibration. The origin of creation is sound vibration. And if the sound vibration is clear and purified, perfect knowledge and perfect activities actually become manifest. Wow, that's really powerful. So by staying really attentive what we're doing, like we're mentioning, you know, the residents of this place and are all chanting these prayers with great carefulness and attention. And the result is that when the sound vibration is sounded in a way that's clear and purified, the result is perfect knowledge and perfect activities becoming manifest. And Srila Prabhupada says, this is enacted by the chanting of the Hare Krishna mantra, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So nice. Srila Prabhupada's purports. Let's see. This is another one that talks about this is the last verse, one of the last verses in the end of Lord Shiva's prayers that he's saying to the Supreme Lord, that he's instructing the Prachetas with. It says that a devotee who rises early in the morning and with folded hands chants these prayers sung by Lord Shiva and gives facility to others to hear them certainly becomes free from all bondage to fruitive activities. This is a nice one spoken by Lord Brahma, who's praying to the Lord for not being deviated. He says, the Lord's potencies are innumerable. As he lies down in the water of devastation, I am born as a total universal energy from the navel lake in which the lotus sprouts. I am now engaged in manifesting his diverse energies in the form of the cosmic manifestation. I therefore pray that in the course of my material activities, I may not be deviated from the vibration of the Vedic hymns. So here we see even the greatest devotees and personalities with incalculable levels of material qualification are still praying to the Lord not to be deviated. What to speak of us? Srila Prabhupada says that this is a warning for one and all in spiritual advancement of life. Unless one is sufficiently protected by the Lord, he may fall down from his spiritual position. Therefore, one has to pray constantly to the Lord for protection and the blessing to carry out one's duty. Lord Chaitanya also entrusted his missionary work to his devotees and assured them of his protection against the onslaught of material affection. The path of spiritual life is stated in the Vedas to be like the edge of a sharpened razor. A little attentiveness may at once create havoc and bloodshed. But one who is completely surrendered soul, always seeking protection from the Lord in the discharge of his entrusted duties, has no fear of falling into material contamination. This verse is so nice, from the Bhagavatam 3rd chapter. Many devotees may already know this one. Satam prasangam mama virya samvido bhavanti ritkarna rasayana kata tajosanaras vyapavarga vartmani shradharatir bhaktir anukramisyati. In the association of pure devotees, discussion of the pastimes and activities of the Supreme Personality of Godhead is very pleasing and satisfying to the ear and the heart. By cultivating such knowledge, one gradually becomes advanced on the path of liberation, and thereafter he is freed and his attraction becomes fixed. Then real devotion and devotional service begins. This verse is from the 7th canto of Bhagavatam, chapter 15, verse number 46. Otherwise, if one does not take shelter of Achyuta, Krishna, and Baladev, then the senses acting as the horses and the intelligence acting as the driver, both being prone to material contamination, inattentively bring the body, which acts as the chariot, to the path of sense gratification. When one is thus attracted again by the rogues of Vishaya, eating, sleeping, and mating, the horses and chariot driver are thrown into the blinding dark well of material existence, and one is again put into a dangerous and extremely fearful situation of repeated birth and death. Listen to this purport, wonderful purport by Srila Prabhupada. Without the protection of Gaur Nitai, who are Krishna and Balaram, one cannot get out of the dark well of ignorance in material existence. This is indicated by the word here, noche, which means that one will always remain in the dark well of material existence. The living entity must get strength from Nitai Gaur or Krishna Balaram. Without the mercy of Nitai Gaur, there is no way to come out of this dark well of ignorance. As stated in Chaitanya Charitamrita, Vande Shri Krishna Chaitanya, Nityanando Sahodito, Gauradye Pushpavanto, Chitro Sando Tamonado. I offer my respectful obeisances unto Shri Krishna Chaitanya and Lord Nityananda, who are like the sun and the moon. They have arisen simultaneously on the horizon of Gauda to dissipate the darkness of ignorance and thus wonderfully bestow benediction upon all. This material world is a dark well of ignorance. The fallen soul in this dark well must take shelter of the lotus feet of Gaur Nitai, for thus he can easily emerge from material existence. Without their strength, simply attempting to get out of the clutches of matter by speculative knowledge will be inefficient. This is a nice section, Srimad Bhagavatam. And this is concerning Raghunath Bhatt. And this is starting in Anjali Leela, chapter 13, verse 125. Raghunath Bhatt left the association of Lord Chaitanya and, as instructed by the Lord, took shelter under Rupa and Sanatana Goswamis. When reading Srimad Bhagavatam in the company of Rupa and Sanatana, Raghunath Bhatt would become overwhelmed with ecstatic love for Krishna. By the mercy of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he experienced the symptoms of ecstatic love: tears, trembling and faltering of the voice. His eyes filled with tears and his throat became choked, and thus he could not recite Srimad Bhagavatam. His voice was as sweet as a cuckoo's, and he would recite each verse of Srimad Bhagavatam in 3 or 4 different tunes. Thus his recitations were very sweet to hear. When he recited or heard about the beauty and sweetness of Krishna, he would be overwhelmed with ecstatic love and become oblivious to everything. Thus Raghunath Bhatta surrendered fully at the lotus feet of Lord Govinda, and those lotus feet became his life and soul. Raghunath Bhatta would neither hear nor speak about anything of the material world. Raghunath Bhatta would neither hear nor speak of anything of the material world. He would simply discuss Krishna and worship the Lord day and night. He would not listen to blasphemy of a Vaishnava, nor would he listen to talk of a Vaishnava's misbehavior. He knew only that everyone was engaged in Krishna's service. He did not understand anything else. Srila Prabhupada's very instructive purport. Raghunath Bhatt never did anything harmful to a Vaishnava. In other words, he was never inattentive in the service of the Lord. Interesting what Prabhupada's saying. I'll repeat that again. Raghunath Bhatt never did anything harmful to a Vaishnava. In other words, he was never attentive to the service of the Lord. Is this indicating that if we're inattentive in the service of the Lord, that we're harming other Vaishnavas? Nor did he ever violate the rules and regulations of a pure Vaishnava. It is a duty of a Vaishnavacharya to prevent his disciples and followers from violating the principles of Vaishnava behavior. He should always advise them to strictly follow the regulative principles which will protect them from falling down. Although a Vaishnava preacher may sometimes criticize others, Raghunath Bhatta avoided this. Even if another Vaishnava was actually at fault, Raghunath Bhatta would not criticize him. He saw only that everyone was engaged in Krishna's service. That is a position of a Mahabhagava. Actually, even if one is serving Maya, in a higher sense, he is also a servant of Krishna. Because Maya is a servant of Krishna. Anyone serving Maya serves Krishna indirectly. Therefore it is said, Kayamani, Kayanamani, Sabatandra Das, Yenamani Tara Hoye Se Pape Nas. Some accept him, talking about Krishna, some accept him, whereas others do not, yet everyone is his servant. One who does not accept him, however, will be ruined by his sinful activities. The last purport again, Srila Prabhupada says that the Lord is always prepared to excuse his devotee. But if a devotee takes advantage of the Lord's leniency and purposely commits mistakes again and again, the Lord will certainly punish him by letting him fall down into the clutches of the illusory energy. We see this in Vrindavan. Prabhupada mentions about how the dogs, the monkeys, and the pigeons in Vrindavan, they are specifically gotten those bodies because of illicit sex, because of too much sexual activities. And then he said hogs, one will get the body of a hog if he's too attached to overeating, or if he's accustomed to eating all kind of different things from different places. One thing that I'm trying to keep in my mind as I experience the purification of Vrindavan Dham, and I also am experiencing the pushing of my Western material conditioning, is that I mean, I was just looking at a monkey on the way here today, and I was thinking in my mind, what's the difference between myself and this monkey? And I thought about it, and I kind of honestly the thought came up that actually the only difference is that he's got a monkey body and I've got a human body. But you know, there's not too much difference. And this verse, I think, really illustrates the fact too that there isn't too much difference. You know, we've been given, therefore, such an incredibly powerful and wonderful process of Krishna consciousness. And you know, on top of that, to be able to have the opportunity to execute it in Vrindavan Dham, where the result of what we're performing has 1,000 times more benefit. Therefore, we really, speaking for myself, should try to become really sincere and really use it to our advantage. Thank you very much for everyone for listening attentively. All glories to Shri Guru and Shri Gauranga. If anyone has any question or comment. Yes, Mataji?
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
I'm just reminded of a story that I heard from a spiritual master, which seems to agree with the context of this verse. Srila Prabhupada was giving class, perhaps at Bhaktivedanta Manor at Soho Street in England, and he was telling the devotees that actually they all could fall down any moment, but that he could never fall down. So of course the devotees accepted this. And then later on, Srila Prabhupada was praying in front of the deities, and His Holiness Tamal Krishna Maharaj was beside him. And Prabhupada stood in front of the deities for a long time. And you see, he was deeply absorbed in prayer. Then later on, Goswami Maharaj asked Srila Prabhupada, Prabhupada, what were you praying in front of the deities? And Srila Prabhupada replied, I was praying that I may never fall down. So then Tamal Krishna Maharaj said, well, but Srila Prabhupada, you just said in the class that you could never fall down, so how is that? And Srila Prabhupada said, yes, because I'm always praying that I may never fall down, therefore I cannot fall down.
Very nice, thank you. Thank you very much. It's just a really short story I'll tell that illustrates that point also. At one point, I was with a party and we were collecting funds to help fund Mayapur and Vrindavan. So we were able to come to Mayapur every year and had a pretty close relationship with Bhatta Maharaj. So in 1976, something happened, I don't recall, to the temple commander who was a local devotee. And so I was offered by Guru Krit Maharaj to Bhatta Maharaj that I could become temple president and maybe help out. And at that time, and Bhatta Maharaj, accepted. And so I became temple commander for about 4 months. And at that time, we were trying to finish all the wall perimeter, the rooms at the perimeter, on the wall of Mayapur. Everyone knows there's a wall that goes around, and there were rooms that were being constructed there. And we were trying feverishly to finish them before the devotees came for the festival. So we were trying to get every devotee who came early to try to help with that. And there was one devotee who was very determined, very strong-bodied devotee, and he would just go out into the banana patch and just chant Hare Krishna like all day long, and it really agitated me. I was a temple commander, and I couldn't engage him, and we were behind schedule. So I felt impelled to see Srila Prabhupada. I went in Srila Prabhupada's room for my obeisances, and Srila Prabhupada was sitting kind of half turned away, as he often did. He had his knee up in his japa bag, and he was chanting like this. I came in the room over here, and so he didn't even turn his face towards me. He kept chanting, absorbed in his japa. I offered my respectful obeisances, and I said, excuse me, Srila Prabhupada, for interrupting you, but I need some help with this matter. Prabhupada said, yes. And I said, Srila Prabhupada, we're trying to finish all the rooms before the devotees come for the festival. It's only a couple of weeks now, and we're behind schedule. And we need every devotee that's coming early to help. There's one really strong-bodied devotee from the West who's come, and he won't do any service. He just goes into the banana patch, and he chants like all day long, like that. So Prabhupada was hearing me, still chanting his japa as heard, and when he finished, he stopped chanting. He said, kind of looked away, and he said, so, he said, you think chanting is not service? And then he looked right at me, he said, that is the highest service. And his eyes rolled like that. And I said, Jai Srila Prabhupada. And I retained my constitutional position of being about this big and crawled out of the room. And later I talked to devotees, actually recently also to one devotee who reminded me that that devotee was actually reprimanded later by Srila Prabhupada. And Prabhupada used him as an example that one shouldn't try to become, imitate Haridas Thakur and be like a Babaji in the Dham, but one should, also actively engage in service. So, of course, Prabhupada, is our, Acharya of the Krishna consciousness movement, and so he's always teaching according to time, place, and circumstance. And so he's also saying things, at different times, in different ways, to different people. anyway, that's just a small remembrance. Any other questions or comments? Yes, Ru.
I would like to initially just conclude, just share what I concluded from the lecture. If I'm wrong, you may kindly correct me, and then I have a question on this.
Okay.
So from the lecture, Prabhuji, I could conclude that since we are conditioned souls,
Shall I repeat the question? Because people are listening on the internet. Okay. This devotee has said that he wants to read his notes from the lecture and make sure that he had a clear understanding of what I said, and then he's going to ask a question at the end. Yes.
So the main aim is to surrender, and surrender is, and we can surrender. That surrender is by constant prayers, and that specifically the Hare Krishna Mahamantra. But from Prabhuji, you had mentioned in the lecture that we should try to chant those Vedic hymns so that we can absorb the mood of devotee, so that we can surrender. So what exactly is that surrender? Is that surrendering unto Krishna? There are many regulated principles. There is chanting of Hare Krishna. So what absolutely is that? And at the same time, when we hear of the pastimes from Chaitanya Charitamrita, which are esoteric pastimes, so it may just make one agitate or make one feel enthusiastic to just touch the higher point of devotion. So what is the absolute thing? How to maintain the balance?
Well, it's mentioned in the Nectar of Devotion that there are 6 principles of surrender. And so if you go through those, for example, to accept what's favorable for devotional service, to reject what's unfavorable for devotional service, to remain completely dependent on the mercy of the Lord, to take absolute shelter of the Lord, and to remember oneself always as a servant of Krishna. So these are different principles of surrender. But that mood of surrender one can catch in the prayers. You know, these principles are, you know, these prayers are you know, packed with incredible potency. And although we're reading them as words on a page, the way they're worded and, you know, the source from which they've come make them incredibly powerful. And so if we study those, read those, recite those, study those, you know, analyze the meaning in them, then we'll pick up the mood of these great devotees, and by their mercy, we'll be able to start feeling that mood overcoming ourselves, and therefore by constant practice overcoming, you know, our material, you know, the way we're interacting through the conditioned way, through the 3 modes of material nature. But it's a gradual process, and we have to remember we're always going to be tested by the Lord, and we never know exactly how how Krishna's going to test us. Like sometimes I experience that, you know, a test comes and it's obvious it's a test coming from the Lord. And so then I think, okay, this is a test from the Lord. But then I find my mind starts to try to analyze it and tries to see how it can manipulate that, you know, according to what I want. And so, you know, we have to be very, very careful at every stage. Therefore, we should always be hankering for association with devotees, and, you know, specifically association with more advanced devotees. Because we're always, whether we know it, we're being tested at every moment. Because we still have a long ways to go to have, like Raghunath Bhatta, tears flowing constantly from our eyes, and, you know, feeling these ecstatic symptoms and upon hearing Srimad Bhagavatam. Anything else? Jai Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Hare Krishna.